Hello, and welcome back. I'm going to continue where I left off. Mate, he was saying, it's because I think gold dust of you. Gold dust. And you may lay to that if I hadn't took to you like pitch. Do you think I have been here a warning of you? All's up. You can't make nor mend. It's to save your neck that I am speaking, and if one of the wild uns knew it, where'd Ud be? Tom, now tell me, where'd I be? Silver, said the other man, and I observed he was not only red in face, but spoke as hoarse as a crow, and his voice shook too, like a taut rope. Silver, says he, you're old, and you're honest, or has the name for it. And you've money too, which lots of poor sailors hasn't. And you're brave, or am I mistook? And will you tell me you'll let yourself be led away with that kind of a mess of swabs? Not you, as sure as God sees me. I sooner lose my hand if I turned agin my duty. And then all of a sudden he was interrupted by a noise. I had found one of the honest hands. Well, here, at that same moment, came news of another. Far away, out in the marsh, there arose, all of a sudden, a sound like the cry of anger, then another on the back of it, and then one horrid, long drawn scream. The rocks of the spyglass re-echoed it a score of times. The whole troop of marsh birds rose again, darkening heaven with a simultaneous whir, and long after that death yell was still ringing in my brain, silence had re-established its empire, and only the rustle of the redescending birds and the boom of the distant surges disturbed the languor of the afternoon. Todd had leaped at the sound like a horse at the spur, but Silver had not winked an eye. He stood where he was, resting lightly on his crutch, watching his companion like a snake about to spring. John, said the sailor, stretching out his hand. Hands off, cried Silver, leaping back a yard, as it seemed to me, with the speed and the security of a trained gymnast. Hands off, if you like, John Silver, said the other. It's a black conscience that can make you fear of me. But in heaven's name, tell me, what was that? That, returned Silver, smilingly, but warier than ever, his eye a mere pinpoint in his big face, but gleaming like a crumb of glass. That? Oh, I reckon that'll be Allen. And at this point Tom flashed out like a hero. Allen, he cried, then the rest his soul for a true seaman. And as for you, John Silver, long you've been a mate of mine, but you're mate of mine no more. If I die like a dog, I'll die in my duty. You've killed Allen, have you? Kill me too if you can, but I defies you. And with that, this brave fellow turned his back directly on the cook and set off walking for the beach. But he was not distant to go far. With a cry, John seized the branch of a tree, whipped the crutch out of his armpit, and sent that uncuffed missile hurtling through the air. It struck poor Tom, point foremost, with stunning violence, right between the shoulders and the middle of his back. His hands flew up, he gave a sort of gasp, and fell. Whether he was much injured or little, none could ever tell. Like enough, to judge from the sound, his back was broken on the spot. But he had no time given him to recover. Silver, agile as a monkey, even without leg or crutch, was on the top of him next moment, and had twice buried his knife up to the hilt into that defenseless body. From my place of ambush I could hear him pant aloud as he struck the blows. I do not know what it rightly is to faint, but I do know that for the next little while the whole world swam away from before me in a swirling mist. Silver and the birds, and the tall spyglass hilltop going round and topsy-turvy before my eyes, and all manner of bells ringing and distant voices shouting in my ear. When I came again to myself, the monster had pulled himself together, his crutch under his arm, his hat upon his head. Just before him, Tom laid motionless upon the sward. But the murderer minded him not a whit, cleansing his blood-stained knife the while upon a wisp of grass. Everything else was unchanged, the sun still shining mercilessly on the steaming marsh and the tall pinnacle of the mountain, and I could scarce persuade myself that murder had been actually done, and a human life cruelly cut short a moment since before my eyes. But now John put his hand into his pocket, brought out a whistle, and blew upon it several modulated blasts that rang far across the heated air. I could not tell, of course, the meaning of the signal, but it instantly awoke my fears. More men would be coming. I might be discovered. They had already slain 2 of the honest people. After Tom and Allen, might not I come next? Instantly, I began to extricate myself and crawl back again, with what speed and silence I could manage, to the more open portion of the wood. As I did so, I could hear hails coming and going between the old buccaneer and his comrades, and this sound of danger lent me wings. As soon as I was clear of the thicket, I ran as never ran before, scarce minding the direction of my flight, so long as it led me from the murderers. And as I ran, fear grew, and grew upon me until it turned into a kind of frenzy. Indeed, could anyone be more entirely lost than I? When the gun fired, how should I dare to go down to the boat among those fiends, still smoking from their crime? Would not the first of them who saw me wring my neck like a snipe's? Would not my absence itself be an evidence to them of my alarm, and therefore of my fatal knowledge? It was all over, I thought. Goodbye to the Hispaniola. Goodbye to the squire, the doctor, and the captain. There was nothing left for me but death by starvation, or death by the hands of the mutineers. All this while, as I say, I was still running, and without taking any notice, I had drawn near to the foot of the little hill with the 2 peaks, and had got into a part of the island where the live oaks grew more widely apart, and seemed more like forest trees in their bearing and dimensions. Mingled with these were a few scattered pines, some 50, some near 70 feet high. The air too smelt more freshly than down beside the marsh. And here a fresh alarm brought me to a standstill with a thumping heart. Chapter 15. The Man of the Island. From the side of the hill, which was here steep and stony, a spout of gravel was dislodged, and fell rattling and bounding through the trees. My eyes turned instinctively in that direction, and I saw a figure leap with great rapidity behind the trunk of a pine. What it was, whether bear, or man, or monkey, I could in no wise tell. It seemed dark and shaggy. More I knew not. But the terror of this new apparition brought me to a stand. I was now, it seemed, cut off upon both sides. Behind me, the murderers; before me, this lurking nondescript. And immediately I began to prefer the dangers that I knew to those I knew not. Silver himself appeared less terrible in contrast with this creature of the woods, and I turned on my heel, looking sharply behind me over my shoulder, began to retrace my steps in the direction of the boats. Instantly the figure reappeared, and making a wide circuit, began to head me off. I was tired at any rate, but had I been as fresh as when I rose, I could see it was in vain for me to contend in speed with such an adversary. From trunk to trunk the creature flitted like a deer, running manlike on 2 legs, but unlike any man that I ever seen, stooping almost double as it ran. Yet a man it was. I could no longer be in doubt about that. So I'm going to leave it off there, and thank you. If you're subscribing or viewing, thank you. I appreciate it. Give me a like, please, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.